Hi, good morning, everyone. We'd like to extend a warm welcome and big thank you for joining us for the Salt Lake Chamber's webinar today on what Utah businesses must do for data privacy and security. I'm James Fair, Senior Vice President at Executech and a member of the Chamber's Cybersecurity Leadership Council. Businesses are going to face a variety of cybersecurity challenges and opportunities in 2022, and we'll need to know what to do to protect their data. So by hosting today's webinar, it's our hope you're going to learn more on the increase in cybercrime in Utah, where Utah businesses are most vulnerable, why remote working and online schooling has made Utahns actually more susceptible to cybercrime, but even more importantly, I'm going to give you some tools like how to form a solid cybersecurity strategy, how to train every employee to recognize cybersecurity threats, implementing common sense policies with employees, the ones who are constantly receiving email, and key tools to implement in your business today. So we've got some really exciting content for you. We'll be taking questions during this webinar. So if you have any questions, please feel free to hit that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. I'm sure we're all familiar with Zoom by now. And we'll do our best to get through as many of those questions as we can today. Please know that our webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the Salt Lake Chamber's website. So today, we are thrilled to be joined by the cybersecurity expert, Kevin Taylor of Comcast. Now, let me tell you a little bit about our amazing speaker today. Kevin is one of about 20 senior level technical people that have a title of Fellow at Comcast. He is focused on cybersecurity and fraud prevention there. He oversees the development and operations of key systems and technologies to help mitigate fraud and cybersecurity. And I was blown away when I found out that Kevin has been granted 9 US patents, and these span security, control systems, and cryptographic keying. So this guy is an expert. He's an industry veteran of 35 years with an extensive experience in video systems, high-speed data technology, security systems, cybersecurity, fraud prevention, and systems engineering. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited and honored to introduce Kevin Taylor. Kevin, take it away.
All right, James, thank you very much. I am very pleased to be here with the Chamber, and just to share, I'm just across the mountains in Denver, so love the Denver and love the Salt Lake area. I've spent a lot of time out that way. So as James had mentioned, I work for Comcast. I'm a Comcast Fellow, and kind of sit at the forefront of some of the challenges that sit with cybersecurity and fraud. So we're gonna talk a little bit about those today, what they are, and some of the things that you can do personally to be a little bit more secure. Let me just check. James, can you see my slides and hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good to go, sir.
All right, great. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about cybercrime. You know, Utah is number 5 of the 50 states for cybercrime, and the average loss per Utahn is about $9,500. That's a lot of money, and during the pandemic, we've only seen that increase, and so it really is a challenge, not just in Utah but across the nation. There were 4,926 victims in 2020, and we've seen this increase in that type of crime. So 2 examples that we want to talk about is data breach. One of the things that I like us to talk about and think about is when we're dealing with cybercrime, a lot of times we think about the hacker in the basement, but that's really not the right model. Cybercrime is a very complex organization. And by the way, if you kind of put all of these cyber criminal organizations together, they would have a market cap of about $1 trillion. So roughly an Amazon or an Apple size. And by the way, they're very, very sophisticated, and they operate at scale. So when they go out and they do something like gather this data, this personal data, it's just the first step in gathering personal data that one group will gather. It'll be sold to another group who will do unemployment fraud, they'll do identity fraud. And so this is all part of this cybercrime ecosystem that is trying to use your data, my data, to get money. And at the end of the day, most of the time, most of this impact, when we talk about it, these millions of dollars of loss, it's all about the bad guys getting dollars. Now, the other one that we wanted to mention is what happened at the University of Utah with the ransomware. And I want to talk about two aspects of ransomware. One is, again, it's about making money. They come in, they encrypt all of your important data, and they hold it hostage until you pay. And at least that's how it was up until a couple of years ago. The bad actors have kind of realized that they can even amplify the impact of somebody not paying by encrypting the data, downloading the data to their servers, and if somebody doesn't pay, then they will, basically take all of that private data and expose it on the dark web for anybody to use. And so it's not just the hostage taking, it's also the threat of that data becoming available out there to other bad actors, and also potentially being an embarrassment. So these are the kind of things that we're dealing with. Cybercrime it's big and it's complex, and it's actually pretty well organized and funded. So anyway, so that's where we get a start. So one of the things that we thought we would share is as part of the protection that Comcast provides through our X5 devices, we help block these attacks that are coming in on the network. And so what we saw, for this period of time in 2020 that we were carefully monitoring this, is that basically 104 attempts per household per month. Now think about what that means. The way I like to describe this is all of us kind of live in physical neighborhoods. Well, what we have here is what's happening in your virtual neighborhood. And in your virtual neighborhood, there really is nothing such as distance. If somebody wants to come visit your place of employment or your business, or your house, distance really doesn't exist. They can do it from Chicago, they can do it from Philadelphia, they can do it from China, they can do it from anywhere. And so think about it. So I want to draw this comparison between the physical world and the virtual world. If you have a business, let's say downtown Salt Lake somewhere, and somebody comes along and they come up to your back door and they pull out some keys and try them, or they pull out a pick lock, likely you're going to see them, and you're going to see somebody kind of playing with your door. And that's how you detect that kind of risk in the physical world. In the virtual world, it's really kind of the same thing. So 3 times a day, the bad guys come to your virtual location and they knock on the door. They try some keys that they might have. They'll try some cybersecurity attacks that they have. And if they can't get through, they'll move on because they're looking for easy victims. So that is a big, that's a way to kind of look at this world that we live in. So as I've already mentioned, we've seen this increase in hacking threats during the pandemic, and it's just continuing to grow. So we should remember that this is an increasing threat for us. And again, it's all about the money. So the other aspect of this that we should take into account really is this idea that within our home, we kind of start out with computers and laptops, and then we added smartphones, and then cameras and storage devices and streaming video devices like Fire TV sticks or Roku or those kinds of things. And today, the average home will have about 13 and a half of these. I will confess, I'm not quite an average person in this space. Within my home, I have 45 connected devices. I'm just a technologist. I'm a geek. I love this stuff. But that's where we're going. The reason that this is important is each one of those devices represents a little bit of risk. The bad guys are going to try to get in to those devices to get into your home network or your business network. So we need to be aware that that's part of the risk that's increasing these days. There's a lot here. So a lot of this is complex, but there are some simple things that we can do that we wanted to call out. And the first, and I'm going to hit each one of these in a little bit more detail: strong and unique passwords, multi-factor authentication, enable updates on those devices that you have in your home or your business. Think before you click the link, and make sure you have good broadband connection security, like with an X5. And if you don't mind, I'm going to take a drink of water here. So let's talk about why we recommend these things. So the first thing is use strong and unique passwords. One of the things that the bad guys do is there's these tools that literally have millions of passwords, okay, that have been exposed in the last several years. And so they'll use, as credentials get leaked, via these data breaches, the bad guys will take these tools and they will test your credentials, if they've been leaked, against Amazon and against Hulu and against Comcast and against Charter and against CenturyLink and against all of us. That's part of what they do. And so the first thing that you need to do is to make sure you have a strong password, one that you can remember easily, but is long. And I would really sort of emphasize, the longer it is and the easier it is for you to remember, the better it is. The other thing that I would say is it needs to be unique. And this can be a real challenge because all of us have 100 different sites where we've used our credentials. One of the things that happens is when you use the same password on different sites, the attackers will get these leaked credentials and they will test them everywhere that they think you might be. And if you've reused that password, then they might be able to get in, like to your Amazon account and to your Hulu account and into your bank. And it sort of doesn't matter where that password came from. If you're sharing or using the same one, that's what creates the opportunities for the bad guys to get a leak from one place and then use it somewhere else. So use strong and unique passwords. The second thing is use multi-factor authentication. So we started and we said, strong password, good. That's kind of your foundation. The next level is turn on multi-factor, and the text or SMS type multi-factor, it's better. And the best is the authentication apps. And the reason for this, and I'll share an example with you. A couple of years ago, there was a lawsuit brought against AT&T by a gentleman who had lost $1.8 million in cryptocurrency. And what had happened in this attack is the attackers had gone to his mobile phone carrier, and all of us that run mobile phone systems have these challenges, and they did what they call a SIM swap, which really means that they transferred that phone service from the legitimate phone to a phone held by the attacker. And that's how they were able to get past multi-factor. So when you think about this, strong passwords, you got to have any place that you can do the text multi-factor is better, but any place where you can use the authenticator apps like Google and Microsoft authenticator apps, that's even better. That gives you a better level of protection. Enable auto updates on devices. As we talked about, the average home has about 13 of these. I have 45. It's important that we turn those on. And the reason for that is what we call 0 days. What a 0 day is let's say that a device has been deployed. and there's an undiscovered bug that can be exploited by attackers, okay? Once the attackers find that, it's now a 0-day, and they're going to start using that to attack anybody who has that particular device. And it actually takes a little while from the bad guys discovering these 0 days before the providers of that software finding out about those and then doing those updates. And so as soon as they fix that bug, it's important that those updates get onto your devices, because that's what protects you from the bad actors trying to take over your devices, to get into your network, to get into your systems. The next thing is, think before you click. And all of us see all of these spam that we get. Our systems have gotten a lot better in eliminating those, but you still have to be careful. And so sort of 3 things to think about. Do you recognize the email? Have you made a recent inquiry to the source? And then number 3, is there a false sense of urgency? One of the things that we've noticed in particular attacks like this, the use of the word kinder or just other things that just don't sound right, but always building up to a sense of urgency that says you really need to go do something now. So your cybersecurity radar should turn on when you see that kind of stuff happening. One of the things I want to mention here is a thing called business email compromise. And what that is, and for any of you that might work in the real estate business or the title business, this is something that in the last 5 years has really, impacted those particular pieces of the industry, where bad guys will break into somebody's account at one of the companies associated with the real estate transaction, and they'll sit there and watch the emails go back and forth until the transaction is about to close. And then the bad guys will basically, to the purchaser, will send new instructions on where to send the money, okay? With the idea that that significant down payment that somebody is making, they're trying to get that to be diverted into bank accounts that they control. And by the way, these guys are very sophisticated. There was a ring that was broken up by the Secret Service where, basically over the course of 4 or 5 years, this group had walked away with about $3 billion in revenue, from doing this within the U.S. And by the way, they were really nasty. They were really a nasty group. So anyways, think about the value of your email, and just kind of have your spider sense in place when something just doesn't seem right, and always be ready to pick up the phone and call somebody if you're concerned about one of these emails that you get. All right. And then connection security, where we started in the beginning, we have these bad guys that literally are visiting your virtual location 3 times a day or more to see if you're there, and to see if anything is in their bag of tools. Can they pick your lock or get around your controls? So this goes back to, we really need controls and systems that block those attacks. And in more technical speak, that means closing ports on your routers and making sure you don't have things that are open that shouldn't be. And so with that, I had said that we'd have a little bit of time for QA, and that's our presentation on the kind of things that you should be aware of, and some of the basic things that you can do to protect your data, your business's data, and keep that data private.
So we did have a question come in, Kevin.
Okay.
The question is, the current cyber threats used by Russian APTs to attack Ukrainian assets have primarily been composed of wipers and DDoS attacks. Has Comcast detected any of this type of activity on their networks in the Utah marketplace? And then there's a follow-up question. Are there any other IOCs which have been detected on networks in Utah?
That's a great question given the state of the world today. In fact, I will mention Comcast in responding to this week. We have dedicated and even brought in additional resource to be looking for those kind of things. And I can't say too much about this, but there was an article that came out the other day. In fact, I think it was yesterday, that talked a little bit about the surprise that we're seeing from a cybersecurity industry, that there's not more of those. You know, at least up to this point, we just haven't seen as much as we expected. So hopefully that answers that question.
Okay, we have no follow-up questions at the moment. Anyone else have questions for Kevin they'd like to ask? They responded, thank you.
All right.
Okay, well, if there are no further questions, Kevin, that was great information. Thank you so much for joining us today, giving us all some excellent advice on what we can do to stay more secure. And thank you everyone for joining us today for our discussion. As a reminder, the recording of this webinar will be available later today on the Salt Lake Chamber's website. Well, thank you everyone and have an amazing day.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care.